Chapter 16. Buffalo Spring. When Bess and George arrived at Pop Hamilton's office, they found that the rancher had just come in. He smiled genially at the cousins. "Hello, girls," he said. "Do you have a problem I can help you with? You look pretty excited." "Something serious and scary has happened," Bess replied. "We came to tell you about it." "Is it about the Revolution bomb site?" Pop asked. "No," George said. "But we did figure out the rest of the message." "What is it?" Pop asked. When the girls recited together, "Revolution bomb site under great cloud," the rancher frowned. He looked down at the floor. "This is more serious than I thought," he admitted. "I must think about the best way to look into this situation." He now changed the subject. "You said you had something to talk to me about?" The cousins nodded, and Bess said, "It concerns Ben Rowell." "You saw him?" George spoke up, saying that the former Hamilton cowboy had come to the masquerade party uninvited, and they were sure he had intended to kidnap Nancy. Pop Hamilton scowled. "Why wasn't I told about this?" he demanded. The girls informed him of the quick action of several guests at the party who had hustled Ben outdoors and ordered him never to return. "But today," said George, "while Bess and I were having a picnic lunch with Chuck and Range near Buffalo Spring, Ben Rowell suddenly appeared out of the woods. He denied being a thief, then handed this note to me." She took the envelope from a pocket and gave it to the rancher. "We wondered if you could identify the handwriting as Roger Payne's." Pop Hamilton stared at the envelope for several seconds, then he took out the note. As he read it, his mouth fell open, then his lips set in a grim line. "I don't recognize this writing," he said. "Definitely it is not Roger Payne's, and by the way, it is not Ben Rowell's either. And this message is preposterous." "More complications," George said. At this moment, Nancy walked into the office. Pop greeted her and repeated what he had just told Bess and George. "I wish I knew who did write this ransom note," he concluded. "Even a little hint would help." Nancy asked Pop if he thought the writer could be the person who had kidnapped Roger Payne and perhaps taken his plane. "That's a logical guess," Pop replied, "but I'm afraid that's all it is. Right now, the only way I know how to get at this whole situation is to take Ben Rowell into custody and get the truth out of him." Nancy remarked that Ben had seemed very frightened of the person who had given him the note to deliver. She wondered if the cowboy would be too scared to divulge any secrets. "He kept insisting he didn't know the person's name or anything about him or where Roger Payne is," she said. Pop smiled. "Ben may be telling the truth, but I can still arrest him on the charge of being an accomplice in a kidnap case." Nancy suggested that the deputy sheriff take someone with him to meet Ben. "He may have pals in hiding," she said. After a few moments of thought, Pop said, "I'll take Chuck and Range with me. I can carry a package that will look as if it contains money. Now don't you three worry your pretty heads over a thing. Just have a good time. I know you're excellent sleuths, but keep away from danger." At this moment, the dinner gong rang. The girls wished Pop good luck on Thursday, then went off to the dining room. They lined up at the buffet, and when they sat down at their table, Nancy's and George's plates were heaped with delicious food. Bess had only some soup, a roll, and a cup of tea. Nancy asked kindly, "Don't you feel well, Bess?" "I guess I'll be all right, but not for days and days," the girl replied. "To tell the truth, I'm too nervous to eat." "About Dave?" George asked. Her cousin confessed that she was apprehensive for 2 reasons. First, she was fearful that something would happen to Chuck while he, Pop, and Range were trying to capture Ben Rowell. Second, her chest tightened and she felt a twinge of pain every time she thought of the moment when Chuck and Dave would meet. George asked, "What do you think will happen?" You don't believe that silly dream you had about the boys having a duel. No, of course not, Bess replied. They're both too intelligent for that. It's just that I don't want to hurt either one of them, and I don't know how to avoid it. Nancy looked intently at her friend. I have a feeling that way down underneath, Bess, you can't make up your mind whether or not you want to get married and give up your present way of life to stay out here. Bess did not reply, but Nancy felt certain she had hit upon the truth. She deliberately changed the subject and said, Let's eat. At first, Bess drank her soup listlessly, but finally she finished it and started on the roll. Nancy winked at George, then said, I don't know why I took all this food. I never could eat it all. Bess, won't you please have some of my roast beef? Oh, all right, she said. George took the cue. As soon as Bess had finished the meat, her cousin said, I'm as bad as Nancy. I haven't touched my salad, and it looks so good. Bess, please eat it for me. Bess accepted the plate of fruit salad. With her appetite restored, she even went to the dessert table and picked out a large piece of blueberry pie. Nothing more was said about food. Nancy suggested that the girls take horses the next morning and go for a ride. I'm not scheduled for a flying lesson, so I can join you. Bess and George said they would like that, so the following morning they went to the corral to get their ponies. They learned from Pete that Pop, Chuck, and Range had left a couple of hours earlier. Pete added, I'm sure hoping that by this time they've caught that mean rascal Ben Ryle. He helped the girls saddle their mounts. Once more Nancy chose Daisy D. As the three riders set off, George asked, Where are we going? Nancy replied, I thought we might head for Buffalo Spring. We may be able to see the tail end of some excitement. Bess could not make up her mind whether she wanted to go there or not. One moment she thought, at least I could find out what happened to Chuck. The next second, she was telling herself that if something dreadful had happened to him, she did not want to see it. Nancy told her that since the men had had such a head start, the girls could never catch them. What I'm hoping is that they'll bring back Ben Ryle as a prisoner and we'll meet them. Bess heaved a sigh. I certainly hope you're right, she said, and followed as George led the way toward Buffalo Spring. The girls made good time, but did not meet anyone. There were no other riders to be seen, and none of the planes from the Excello Flying School were in the area. George remarked, It's sure lonesome out here. Nancy nodded and suggested that the girls have a short race to give the horses a little extra exercise. See that clump of yucca ahead? She asked. Let's call that our goal. The girls started out with Nancy in the middle lane. The ponies evidently enjoyed the sport because in a few seconds they had put on top speed. Little by little, Nancy and her mount edged ahead. Then suddenly she saw something only a few feet before her. A deep gopher hole. If Daisy D should step into it, she would certainly break a leg. Instinct told Nancy to turn her pony sharply to one side, but at this moment such a move would be disastrous. If she went to the left, she would crash into Bess. If she turned to the right, she would hit George. Nancy had only one choice. She yanked on the reins so hard that Daisy Deer reared up almost straight, and for a moment the girl thought both she and the pony would twist over backwards. But the animal's natural sense of balance made her come down with all 4 feet on the ground. She was less than 6 inches from the gopher hole. Oh, thank you, Daisy D, Nancy murmured, and patted the horse's neck. You're a great girl. In the meantime, Bess and George had reached the clump of yuccas in a photo finish, then slowed down their mounts. They turned swiftly and cantered back to Nancy. What happened to you? Bess asked. Nancy told her. How awful! Bess exclaimed. I'm glad you weren't hurt. George added, Thank goodness nothing happened to either you or Daisy D. Nancy smiled wanly and sat still to rest. The other girls were also quiet for a few seconds. Suddenly, all 3 ponies cocked their heads. "They must have heard something," George remarked. "Listen!" "I hear it too," said Nancy. The 3 riders concentrated on the sound. From somewhere in the distance came a man's pleading cry. "Help! Come here! Help me! Get me loose!" End of chapter 16.